Welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. On this podcast, Laura
and Shelby, both board-certified nurse coaches, show you how to make as much money as you want in private practice as a nurse coach.
All right, guys, welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. It's Laura here today by myself, and I'm doing the coolest episode because it's all completely custom created for you guys. I did a post earlier this week in our Facebook group, The Successful Nurse Coach, and asked, what is the top fear? What is your top fear about being a paid nurse coach? And I wasn't surprised by the responses because we've been doing this for so long and because I've done it myself. And what I thought I would do today is just talk about what these biggest fears are, break them down to what they actually are, and then talk about how you can overcome them and different ways to overcome them. Because the truth is that trying anything new and growing can be scary. And I think each human being, we have different levels of fear for different reasons. There's all sorts of bodies of research on this. There's a somatic approach. There's a holistic approach. There's a spiritual approach. Like there's so many approaches to overcoming fears, but it doesn't change the fact that everybody experiences them and that they're very predictable for this particular part of your journey if you're a nurse coach in your first 3 years of private practice. So when I did this post, the number one fear was, and I'm going to read you exactly what the clients said, is not having clients, or I won't get regular clients, or people will not want to pay me. I won't get any clients at all. People don't want to pay out of pocket for my services because it's not covered by insurance. And so when you really sit with those sentences and with that sentiment, really what that is fear of rejection and fear of failure. And fear of rejection comes from early childhood. There, at some point in early childhood, we realized that we were separate from our parents or separate from our caregivers. At some point in childhood, we were under the impression that we were rejected by somebody that we loved. It could be something as simple as a parent walking out of the room and the child perceiving it as rejection. But at some point, we experienced something painful that had us feeling rejected. And since then, our ego has been trying to protect us from it. Now, this is really big for some people, not as big for other people. But it's present for every human being. So if this is you, nothing has gone wrong. This is normal. And what that actually is it's part of our ego. So fear of rejection is a fear that we're going to be separated from the tribe. And it makes sense because when we were walking the earth thousands and thousands of years ago, if we got rejected from our tribe, we didn't survive. So it was life or death, because we depended to live on each other in community. So anytime we have like a romantic relationship end, we have a friendship suddenly end, like that triggers that fear of abandonment, that fear of rejection. And it can be really big in the body. Like it's no wonder we don't want to put ourselves out there to possibly experience it, because when we experience it, it is unpleasant. So when I hear clients say, I'm afraid to start because I'm afraid I won't have enough clients, what they're actually saying is, Laura, I'm afraid to experience the feelings that I will have if I perceive rejection. And this also plays into kind of fear of failure. So not getting clients could also make you think, well, if I try this and nobody pays me, then I suck. And if I suck, then I've failed. And if I've failed, then my ego is going to make me think that I'm humiliated. I'm going to feel shame. I'm going to feel worthlessness. And that feels terrible. I remember feeling exactly like that. And let's protect you. Let's not try, because that's not tenable. We can't go through that again. And so then really what happens is not facing these two fears can keep you in a box for the rest of your life. It essentially cuts you off from realizing your full potential. And there's no way to sidestep it. There's only you have to walk through this. And then everybody's journey of walking through this or overcoming this or uncovering this, This is unique to you and your human experience and your personality. And this is why it's so great to work with an experienced mentor. It's one thing to have a mentor that can say, I can show you all the things to do. But when you're working with a group of mentors that says, I've walked 450 people through this fear that you're up against right now, and I know exactly how it can work. And I perceive some parts of your personality that remind me of these other clients, and this worked. And so unknowingly, we've become experts at walking people through walking through their own fear. And this is the cool part, you guys. So if overcoming your fear of rejection and your fear of failure, if we do that here in your practice, this is where you learn it, 1,000 more doors open up, because then there's suddenly all these areas in your life that you aren't afraid to do. And seemingly impossible things like buying rental properties or starting another business or becoming a public speaker or writing that book or whatever your version of doing something risky is, suddenly that doesn't feel risky anymore because you've eliminated that fear. You become infinitely more powerful. You become infinitely more creative. I was joking at our retreat recently that yes, we market ourselves as we are the successful nurse coaches. We teach you how to make money in private practice. That's true. But covertly, I'm fulfilling my sole purpose of releasing you from the fears that keep you small. Like it's a big deal. It's worthwhile work. It's so key. And here's the thing too. If you can overcome your fear of rejection and your fear of failure, anybody around you will benefit from it. Because once you observe somebody who's done this is why working with a good mentor is important. If you're around a good mentor who's transcended these fears, being in their presence will help walk you over the line. It's very difficult to walk yourself over the line, and it's nearly impossible to walk yourself over the line surrounded by people who are still afraid. It's so much more than just like telling somebody what to do in strategy. It's being around a human being who has transcended their own fears and can speak to the heart of it with knowing. There's a vibration there that kind of, it's a way shower. The vibration of overcoming fear has an energy signature to it. And when you're around it, you can sense it. And somehow it makes it easier for you to follow. This is why I've hired so many mentors. It's for these reasons, not because they're going to tell me what to do. I probably could have figured out what they needed to do or what I needed to do from YouTube, to be honest. It's really just being in their presence. So anyway, if your primary fear is not having enough clients, not getting clients, people not wanting to pay you, I'm here to tell you that that is a temporary reality that will be transcended if you do not quit. You have a 100% chance of getting paid clients if you don't quit. So it's not a reasonable fear because it's just not true. And at this point, we know nurse coaches get clients. But what you're experiencing is your fear of rejection and your fear of failure. And that is real. And that's what we're up against, not the actual circumstance. The circumstance is absolutely ridiculous. We have too much proof. Can you imagine being a toddler saying, I just don't believe I can take a step without falling? And so I'm not going to try because that'll be embarrassing. And what if I stand up and I fall? Because you're surrounded by people who aren't falling. We know that with practice, you will eventually learn to walk. This is the same. It really is. Learning to sell coaching is a skill that is learnable, and it doesn't matter where your starting point is. I can say that with 100% certainty. Now, overcoming your fear of rejection and fear of failure, that's where it takes you to become a hero in your own journey, because it's not easy. It's not easy, and it's incremental. And for all my mentees listening right now, you guys know this. You've seen your coworkers your colleagues go through this. We bump up against these fears almost every single call. And then you see one of your colleagues step over it and you're like, oh my gosh, she did it. Something changed. She's just not really afraid anymore. Suddenly things that used to seem hard or scary, they just aren't hard or scary anymore. So, best way to overcome these fears is first to realize that's what you're up against. So you're basically acknowledging to the ego. It's like, hey, I see you. I hear you. You're trying to keep me safe. Remember that one time. So knowing what you're up against and then intentionally going through it by taking action, being in the presence of others who've been liberated from their own fear, being guided by a mentor who believes in you even when you don't believe in yourself. This is the best path forward. And when the fear is realized, because you are going to propose to clients and they're going to say no, also having support so that your ego doesn't go, see, I told you I was right. And you have somebody like me or Shelby or a lead mentor of ours saying, see, I told you you're doing great, because if the more no's you get, the closer you are to a yes. So we have to constantly reframe this experience so that the ego doesn't win here. And by the way, ego's not bad. It was created for a reason. It's just, it's a tricky little guy or girl. Mine is Lolita. She is cunning and baffling, and she is sneaky, and she absolutely sometimes is the driver of the bus. And it is not pleasant when she is. She's just not on board for Laura's highest potential and my authentic expression and my highest self. She is still grounded in the lower frequencies and thinks she has control over things that she doesn't have control over. So I'm still working right alongside you guys on some of these things. All right. What's the next group of fears that was so prevalent in this post? It was the fear of doing harm or not providing value. Now, this is what it looks like. I'm afraid of not being an effective coach. Or what if a client hires me and I fail their expectations? What if I don't know what I'm doing? What if I suck? What if they do a whole package with me, their life doesn't shift, and they're disappointed and they're like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have spent that money with Laura. Or maybe they blame you for their lack of results. And then you feel like a bad coach. And then if you feel like a bad coach, you're going to have that fear of rejection and that fear of failure. So there's some of that at play here. But the other hidden one for nurses especially is we've been taught to do no harm. And our ego thinks if I talk somebody into spending $1,500 with me, to spend an hour with me coaching them once a week for 3 months, and they don't have, their minds aren't blown, and they have a thought that it wasn't worth their money, then I've harmed them because I've taken money from them and I haven't provided value. And that makes me XYZ. So that's really big, guys. This one's big. And this one will show up when you get your first paid client. So when you first overcome your fear of rejection and failure, you make a proposal. Someone says yes. You get really, really excited. Do a happy dance. Yay, I'm a paid coach. And then immediately your mind goes to, oh shit, I hope they cancel. I hope they change their mind, because now the pressure is really on to perform. And so then these are some of the thoughts that are come from the ego. Well, you better make it powerful. You better prepare. They said that they were having some problems with this in their life. You better find some books and some podcasts and find resources and ask the community. You better become an expert in everything that they said on their pre-coaching questionnaire, because you have to know all the answers. You're the coach. And it's all bullshit. It's total bullshit. It's actually not your role at all. And I hate to break it to you, ego, but your clients having a powerful experience are not the results of you. It is the result of the space and the container that you facilitate. So if you give all the power to the container, you can get some distance between you and the client outcomes that will give your ego a little bit of, it will mute it a little bit, maybe hopefully get it a little bit quieter. Here's the thing. As a brand new nurse coach, this is what you get to focus on. Number one is your intention. If your intention is to deeply listen, deeply witness, unconditionally love your client in front of you, you're 80% there. Your intention is to deeply listen, to witness your client, to deeply see them, to unconditionally love them, and to hold their highest potential as a possibility. You're choosing to see them as the most healed, whole, incredible human being that they actually are, you're choosing to see them as that, your intention is to serve them in that capacity, everything else takes care of itself. As far as coaching techniques, that's the other 20%. And that's negligible, to be honest. So you could be a solid B+ coach, worth every penny, and not know shit about coaching techniques. Now, coaching techniques are going to come over time. They give you an edge. They're awesome. You should learn them. You will learn them. But the magic of coaching is that first 80%, and that is listening deeply, witnessing the client deeply, holding unconditional, non-judgmental space. And that's where the magic happens. Give all the glory to the container. If your client does great, don't let your ego go, see, I'm so great. And if your client doesn't make any progress, don't say, see, I'm a terrible coach, because that's a trap. And it's just not sustainable to have a business that way. I can tell you right now how many times in my life coaching practice, in my health coaching practice, and definitely in the Successful Owners Coaches practice, that we've had clients that have made extraordinary changes, has grown so much, and at the very end of their container, point the finger at us and say we didn't do a good job. Now, if my ego took charge every time that happened, this would be a really painful company to run. So I'm not saying that won't happen. It could happen, but it's the exception, not the rule. Because essentially, it'll be up to your client to decide if you're a good coach or a bad coach. And we don't have control over that. We have control over what we bring to the table. We just continually do the best that we can be, and we be a little bit better each day. That's all that we can do. That's growth mindset. And here's the thing. If this is a big fear for you, if this is one of your primary fears for you, then this is how you combat it with something really tangible and strategic. Watch back your coaching calls and critique yourself. Do your own feedback on every coaching call. Learn from every single coaching call. We have tools in our course that give you like the deep coaching scorecard. We have post-proposal worksheets. We have all these tools so that you do assess your own performance and get better. And watching yourself on video is the best. And for most people, they realize they don't look that bad or sound that bad. So if this is a big fear of yours, then say, you know what? God, universe, the divine, my creator, whatever, my higher self, because I have this fear, I'm going to make a commitment and have the discipline to watch back my coaching calls and get feedback on them until this goes away, until I'm confident that I'm learning and growing and offering value. So that this is the easiest thing to fix. You can fix it through the commitment to growing and being better. And hey, I'm a much better coach than I was 5 years ago. And the coach that I will be 5 years from now and the human being that I will be 5 years from now will think the version of me now is cute and trying really hard. So we are all on a growth trajectory, and it's okay to continually get better. It's not okay to never choose to get better because we fear any feelings that our ego throws at us. And so for the nurse who's afraid to do harm, I want to remind you something. And this is, I forget the saying that Shelby said. I think it had to do with being visible, but she's like, if you've run a code, you can send a few emails. Coaching is not life or death. It is very difficult to do harm. The most harm you could ever do is to inject your own opinion, your own prejudices, to judge people, to tell them what to do, to be directive, to not listen. That'd be the worst that you could do. And that's what happens in every single primary care physician appointment in the world, pretty much. So the bar is really low here for safety. And the currency of nurse coaching is listening, non-judgment, and unconditional love while seeing our client's highest potential. I feel like I'm a preacher on these calls. I really do. I feel like my podcasts can be preachy because I get so passionate, and I think about these things in my brain all the time. They're just on a rerun, and I'm on so many coaching calls, and so you guys get the brunt of it. So I hope you don't feel like I'm yelling at you. That's my least favorite kind of podcast. So I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to move on to the next fear. You guys. Okay. This one came up, and this one can be hit or miss, but I'll give it to you guys so you can try it on for size. The fear of getting in trouble. So there's this fear that you won't do everything correctly with your contracts, with HIPAA, and you'll lose your license. I think as nurses, we have PTSD from the fear of losing our licenses because we've worked for organizations where lives are on the line, and hey, it is relevant. Like it's not wrong. We can't get medications wrong. We can't get orders wrong. We're human beings. We make errors, and so we've been accustomed to this hypervigilance around protecting our license. And then you take a nurse coaching course. You go into private practice, and there's no doctor supervising you, and the autonomy freaks you out because you feel like you might be doing something wrong, or that you're going to send an email and get like a $25,000 fine. And when we're not contracting insurance, most nurse coaching practices really fall more out of healthcare industry and into transformational industry. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be careful. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have particular forms to cover you. But the risk is very, 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 very low. It really, really, really is. I would say, people say that they have fear of flying, but you're more likely to die in a car accident than you are in a plane crash. Let's use that analogy here. You're more likely to lose your license at your job than you will ever be in your private practice, period. And if you're in our community, if you're our client, we have tools, we have enough knowing to get you started. And if you're really, really afraid, or you're an advanced practice nurse, or you're in a state that tends to be a little more insane, like New York or California, you can do more. You can make some money. You can reinvest some of that money in working with a lawyer if you want to clean up your contracts. But we've been doing this long enough. The contract templates that we see are usually good enough. And if you feel some fear, you can always reinvest some money later and tighten it up. But the fear of getting in trouble here is primarily kind of like a PTSD response from just being a nurse. It's not actually something we should be afraid of because the incidence is so low of being sued or having your license gone after. You're more likely to get sued than you are to get your license. Anything to happen to your license. All right, next fear. The fear of inconsistent income. And so what that really is a fear of a lack of stability, of certainty, and human beings have a need for certainty. They also have a need for variety. So if your need for certainty around income is a lot higher than other people's, this can be particularly difficult. And this is for lots of reasons. This can be like parents saying what you've heard as a child around like, you just need to get a really good job and you need to stay at the same company and you need to have a retirement. And none of that's wrong. That's great. But what you're up against here as an entrepreneur is that you might have to earn another way. And so this is my best comeback for this fear. So if people say, I just fear not making enough money or that people won't pay for my coaching. And I say, do you think you could get 20 people to hire you in a year? And he said, well, yeah, that seems doable. Because a 20 person a year practice is a full-time nurse coaching practice and will exceed most hospital incomes. There's definitely exceptions to this. So it's not that we have to have 2,000 people in our coaching practice. We need 20 the first year, and then it grows and there's different income streams and there's all these ways that we work with it. But when we're going from 0 paid clients and we're having this fear of stability, you're going to have a job for a bit and maybe you'll go PRM, but there's 1,000 ways to make this work with such low risk that it's kind of crazy. Because the worst case scenario is you would leave a job and get another. That's really it. And if you left a job and got another, there's probably a reason for it. And PRN jobs are fantastic. I've had travel nurses just go do travel assignments for 13 weeks and then take 3 months and go insane on their coaching practice. I've had lots of people build coaching practices working full time. It wasn't easy, but essentially they eventually went down to part-time. We pay $900 a month for our health insurance for a family of 4. So that's less than $12,000 a year that we pay for health insurance. And I think I was probably paying the same amount to my employer. So there's, for most people, I mean, this is all nuanced, but for most people, you can figure out the health insurance thing pretty easily. And when you are working for yourself, you have a lot of tax benefits. So you do not pay as much taxes because there's a lot of things that you write off, including your mentor, including any programs you buy from us, including CEUs, including your certification. If you're listening to this, you're in certification, open up your business so that you can, even if you never sell coaching once, open up a business so you can write off your certification. You can write off part of your internet. You can write off part of your phone. You can write off your new laptop. You can write off some coaching books you buy from Amazon. These are all things that are really cool. You can write off your gas and mileage if you go to a networking event. You can write off your travel if you're traveling to a retreat. You can host a retreat at your home. There's so many ways that this path creates more stability. What I'd like to talk about, though, is the fear of inconsistent income. Once this is figured out, I'll tell you what it's replaced by. And at some point in your entrepreneurial journey, you'll learn enough about sales that you know you can sell. And when you know you can sell and you have things that you believe in, then essentially anytime that you need money, the question doesn't become, oh my gosh, who's going to pay me? It becomes, oh my gosh, what problem do I want to solve? Because you already have the skill sets to have people pay you to solve that problem. I just hired a woman that I saw on Instagram this weekend because I really need a house manager for my house, like really bad. We have a large farm, we have a busy family. My husband has a coaching practice, we have a real estate investing business. And I'm kind of tired of all of us folding laundry every time we're together as a family and doing chores. Like I'd like to have a little more space. And she had a program. It was $2,000 and I'm not in it yet, but it's a program, it's a course where she teaches you how to find, hire, train, and pay a house manager. Because this is really, you can't just like Google it. And if you found an agency, the price is going to be astronomical for this. This wouldn't be like a local person. And in my head, I'm thinking, that's genius. So she solved this problem for herself. She realizes there are other busy entrepreneurial moms out there who also need a house manager. And now she's making money teaching me how to do it for my family. I think at some point as an entrepreneur, you realize that you have this capability, that you have enough skill set that you're never going to go hungry as long as you know how to solve some problems. And nurses are so good at solving problems. It's crazy. So it's a big mindset shift to go from employee to entrepreneur, but it's doable. It's so much more doable with support. And here at the Successful Nurse Coaches, we're notorious for brainwashing you into believing you can do it. And then once you believe you can do it, guess what? It happens. It's just the way that the mind works. If you like data, which some of you do, we have data. We keep data every month from all of our clients because we like to see trends. And at this point today, it's 45% of nurse coaches make 16,000 or more in their first year in our programs. And most of them are working full-time or part-time. And many people have made a lot more than that. And many people have made less than that. At the 2-year mark, it's 80% have made more than that. And at the 3-year mark, it's 100% if you don't quit and you're consistent. So I think that's really good odds. It's better than any other new business venture that I know of, the lowest amount of overhead. So the question becomes, really, like, are you willing to face your fears? And do you have enough space and safety in your life to do that? Are you in the right room of people to do that? I think if you came to our Facebook group and you saw this post, I saw so many of you saying, oh, I feel like thank God, I thought it was only me. I felt so alone. And you're not alone. This is a really predictable hero's journey, starting your own nurse coaching practice, and we're here for it. So come see us in the Facebook group or come to one of our recent or upcoming workshops. We'd love to spend some time with you. Have a great rest of your day.